So there's the interview piece, and you can take a look at the webinar that I did on virtual interviews. And then there's the making hiring decisions. This is the part that's new to most of us. Being able to make those hiring decisions without ever seeing the person face to face in person is a challenge, and there's risk involved. But the risk is no greater than not seeing the person face to face. Unless you need someone to demonstrate an actual physical activity in the interview, you're going to get a lot of value out of just talking to the candidate, seeing them on video, hearing their interview, and asking them questions and doing the probing. Hire for values, not culture fit. So all those values that you're reevaluating are critical, and they're probably the most critical thing, because you want to hire for what you value in the company and see if those candidates actually match the values that you're trying to hire for versus the culture fit. Here's an example. If your company is used to face-to-face and you never have a remote employee, and the company is used to having after hours events, softball games, bowling parties, happy hours, all the things that go with building relationships and creating a culture. If you're interviewing someone and they don't do all those things, you're just hiring them for culture fit, how you feel about them. Does your instinct tell you that this is someone you could work with because you like them? You want to look at those values in more of a pure sense of what are the values that you're looking for. You want to consider the must-haves. This is probably the hardest bullet on this slide. Considering the must-haves, not the nice-to-haves, is very difficult. I just got through talking with a person about this, and they had a pool of candidates who were all equally qualified when it comes to the skill set that they were looking for. The difference is, on the nice to haves, there were a couple of candidates who had more of the nice to haves than they did the must haves. So companies want to hire, get the most bang for the buck, especially in this environment where you're dealing with cost and you want to get the best employee that you could possibly get to do all the things that you could ever imagine that they would do, versus hiring for the must haves for that job and the basic qualifications for that job. My recommendation is that you not ignore the nice to haves, but you put those at a lower priority than you do the must haves. Because if you're trying to diversify your workforce, a lot of times the candidates that you're going to have in the pool that are highly qualified and can meet the must haves and have the potential for the nice to haves may not have done all the nice to haves because they haven't been in this industry for that long. Tech is an example of that, because typically you're going to have people who have been in technology. They know lots of different technologies. They know lots of different programming languages, and they are going to be a better candidate when you consider all the nice to haves. And a lot of times when it goes off the rails and you are hiring for talent, the challenge is going to become, and then if you're in a debrief, the debrief is going to be around most of the nice to haves, where you're going to say, this is a better candidate because they have all these nice to haves. But I would say, take the time, prioritize the must haves, and work on the must haves. I use a model for complex decision making. It's called AHP, which is the analytical hierarchy process. It allows you to really determine, are the priorities that you set, are those the preferred priorities? And you'll get a number out, and it'll check for consistency. I'm happy to share information on that with anybody who's interested in hearing that. The other thing you want to do is, with your interview teams and with your leadership team, agree on what the competencies need to be for a role. Is it, for example, this person should have a competency of really driving and trying to deliver results? Is it something where communication and collaboration is a top priority? You want to get agreement from the leadership team on what it takes to be in the company and what competencies you're looking for. And then I talked about prioritizing the role requirements. Make sure you know what's most critical for that role. And then get good at conflict resolution. When you're in a debrief for a candidate, there's going to be disagreement typically. You want to get good at working through those and solving through that. And it might not be a unanimous decision, but you've heard everyone, you've heard what they have to say, you've seen their concerns, you've addressed the concerns, and then you've decided to move forward as an organization. A couple of things you want to be able to assess for is creativity and empathy. Those are two areas where you're not going to be able to create a technical solution for that. Some of these other things, you can create a technical solution for a problem that you have. On the creative side, you're not going to be able to do that, and you want to get good at evaluating, assessing, and understanding what that looks like, if that's something that's important to your workforce. And if you've got a distributed, remote team, having the ability to have empathy for each other and be creative with problem solving is going to be important as you move forward. And you always want to debrief with the interview team. As many people from that interview as you can have in the debrief, you want to make sure everybody has a chance to weigh in, share their concerns, share their feedback, share the positive things that they got from the candidate, and really evaluate whether that's a great candidate, so you feel better, you have a better sense of what you're really looking for. And this one, sometimes this is hard because I'm a hiring manager myself, and I tend to violate this, is just hiring managers should weigh in last. Whoever the person is that's hiring that person, they're going to spend the most time with that new hire. You want them to weigh in last to hear everyone's feedback and not tip the scale, so that other people who are part of the interview process, who may actually work for this hiring manager, feel more comfortable about sharing what they need. Now, some companies, it's not a problem. Other companies, it's more hierarchical, and that hiring manager's opinion could really sway the way people think. So any questions any questions, Jeff?
Yeah, I've got one for you from Fran. How do you avoid exclusion when promoting inclusion? For example, fun events around children, sports, pets at the office. You can opt out of those, attending those events possibly, but then you're called out on group meeting or in chat.
Yeah, avoiding this gets back to that whole inclusion focus, right? And looking at what's important and looking at the values. In some companies, it's critical that you attend all the social events, and not everyone has the ability to do that because of their work-life situation. And this is where that whole focus on diversity and creating an environment where people can actually be who they are, and meet the values and still be a good performer and still be a valued member of the team. This one takes work, right? You've got to, as a leadership team, check yourself and understand that this person is getting their work done. They are participating in the moment. So you could set things like water cooler opportunities where those check-ins and those just gatherings are during the work hours. They're something that people can participate in, and they can build relationships, not only with the broader team, but one-on-one with each other. And that gives them the opportunity to actually be a valued member and feel like they belong to the organization and feel like they are a match with the organization. That takes work, it takes discipline. It also takes holding each other accountable and calling each other out. And it also means the individual should raise that issue with the leadership if they see that, hey, this seems like it's an issue because I'm a single parent. I have to be home for my children at a certain time, and I just feel like I'm not being included because I can't attend all the events. Having a virtual team makes a difference because you've leveled the playing field by having everyone be virtual and do the virtual get together or online virtual game or virtual happy hour, whatever your company decides to do to have those water cooler moments, or there's just a hangout time. That will make a difference. All right, so let me talk a little. Go ahead, Jeff.
Brooke is asking, if I keep my team virtual, how do I gauge productivity?
Yeah, great question. This also gets to do I trust my team if I don't see them, right? If my team is working remotely, how do I know they're doing their job and not just hanging out? And this gets back to the work-life integration question point that I made earlier. If you have a virtual workforce, one of the practices is to have a certain number of hours during the day where everyone on the team is available. The other time during the day should be focused on people getting their work done and being productive. So some ways you can handle that. One is to make sure that you have good goals in place and deliverables, right? And when I talked about setting goals where you're measuring the impact of the work that they're doing, and ideally there's some data that can go with that, so you have numbers that you can look at to see what the production looks like. Then you can look at the impact, and you can also determine, hey, is this person communicating and collaborating with other people? And you can get feedback on specific projects, especially if it's a project. So the key is to have goals, make sure everyone understands what those goals are, and make sure that you are communicating the output and the results. And it's okay to publish that and keep it transparent so that everyone sees the output. And when you see that there's a challenge or an issue with someone's productivity, you just talk to them and you communicate. You have to over communicate without saturating your team, and you can communicate during a number of ways. So
that's what I got for now.
So I talked about leveling the playing field. One of the things you want to do is make sure you're fostering a digital workplace. And some of the things, this is not all inclusive, but I've got a lot of bullet points on this slide because I think it's important to be able to make this adjustment. You want to design your workforce for digital engagement, meaning people can work electronically and it's not required for them to physically be somewhere doing something unless they're touching a product that has to touch another piece of equipment or machine. Most of these companies that are in the knowledge space or consulting can do this remotely. Having that digital workplace allows you to communicate in a very rich way. The other thing you want to do is, in order to foster this digital workplace, you have to make sure all roads to career growth and career development don't lead to the corporate headquarters. So if your corporate headquarters is in a specific location, but you're hiring people all over the country, but they're limited on how much they can grow in the company and what their career opportunity looks like, you want to be able to think about, how can we change this so that people can work anywhere and be successful in this company and have a longer career? You also want to look at what's the difference between your office and your office workers and your remote workers. The goal is to level the playing field so that even if you only have one remote worker, you've put in place video, email, chat, internal collaboration tools using other products that like Microsoft Teams, Slack, Google Hangouts. There are lots of tools that you could use to make sure that you've leveled the playing field. And you always want to make sure that the people who are remote have access, the ability to communicate in the same way that someone who's in the office does. And so whether you have 100 or 10,000 remote workers or one, you want to make sure that you are focused and leveling the playing field with that digital work, with that remote workforce. One of the things that is not having assigned desk. Some of the big companies, these are major corporations who've gone to not having an assigned desk. They let people come in and do what they call hotel, or you can reserve a desk when it's needed and you're going to be face to face, but you don't have your own desk. Your own desk is back in your home office. You also want to be able to leverage the technology. You don't want to overemphasize the technology because it should be all about the people, but the technology just provides the infrastructure for you to do a better job in a digital workplace. So using video gives the opportunity to build relationships. Using audio, that's another helpful way. Using AI and machine learning and data analytics tools that allow you to tell a story and to be able to share more information across multiple channels and platforms with your organization. And then you want to be able to use stuff that allows you to automate translations. So if you've got a global workforce and you want to be able to take translations from a specific language into another language, using some of those automation tools allows you to do the translation. The other thing is transcription tools that could take a meeting and take the audio and transcribe that into text that allows you to share that in another format for people to be able to consume. I talked about personalizing the experience for your employees and your customers and your candidates. You want to be able to get to know people who work for you and not just know them because you're talking about work all the time. Just get some of that personal time that you would if you were walking down to someone's desk and having a conversation around that. Real-time communication, it's much easier to have real-time communication through all the various channels that exist. Email is not real-time communication, although many of us treat it like real-time communication, but chat allows you to interact or just pick up the phone or jump on video to allow you to have that real live conversation. So it's no different than you would if you were going into the office, you could have that real-time conversation. The other thing is make sure that your workforce has a setup that allows them to have the equipment, the tools, the configurations that they need to be able to work remotely. Video conferencing, I talked about, text, chat, recording tools. You can record demos. If you're trying to tell someone how to do something, instead of typing out a full page email, just use one of the tools to record a screen capture and send that to the team, because then that's shareable and it's not this one-time thing that they've got to just read. And then you want to be able to find other companies who are doing digital work. If you can find digital partners that you can share best practices with, or digital partners that enhance your ability to deliver on your core offerings, that is a key. There are companies out there that specialize in helping enable companies to be more digitally savvy. And then just building that workforce for digital is really critical.